the weather here, and I promise you I didn't schedule this meeting knowing that it was going to rain. Someone made that comment earlier this week. I promise you I didn't do it. I don't have that much power. And by the way, I'm glad that you're here. It is my wish that more people can come. But if you all got the email blast that I sent this afternoon, I will be recording this meeting. So we're video recording this meeting. So if you wanted to see it later, you're able to watch it. It should be available on Monday. And also, any follow-up questions that you might have, feel free to keep sending them even after this meeting is done. So if a thought comes into your head after all that's discussed today, feel free to send those questions. So, quick introduction. Hello everyone, I'm Ray Dienzo. I'm the General Manager here at the Pomo CSD. I want to thank you all for attending this town hall meeting to discuss the proposed water rates. This is an informational meeting only. No actions will be taken during this time. There is going to be opportunities later on, and I'll explain that at the end of our presentation here. So this is an informational meeting only. So tonight is an opportunity for our staff to meet with you, our customers, and to provide information to answer your questions so that you can make an informed decision regarding the proposed water rates before you. So joining me also in this meeting is Janet Edigue, our Finance Director, Peter Sepchik, he's our Director of Engineering and Operations, and Clayton Tugfield, who is our rate study consultant. So the issues that we bring before you here, I'm going to just be upfront. They're very difficult, but they are necessary. So I don't blame you if you hate me, but at least hate me for the right reasons. So, but at best, I do hope that you would support this rate increase and receive our pledge that we would be good stewards of your rates. So I also wanted to let you know, just outline in the meeting, a very simple agenda today. I'm going to share this presentation. It's not going to be too long because I do want to leave some time to answer your questions and have a discussion at the end. As was said, please fill out a comment card for your questions, and if for some reason we don't get to them tonight, we'll email you with the questions. And the other thing that we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be using the questions and answers as a result of the meeting tonight to formulate our frequently asked questions, which we will devote on the website as well. So with that, I just wanted to tell you, okay, in the presentation, we're going to share major drivers of the proposed water increase, the water financial plan, the current capital improvement plan, the annexation of variable rates, which is part of this proposed rate before you, and then we'll show the example bills and comparisons. All of this is in your notice, but we can talk about it here, and then I'll share the implementation schedule, and of course questions and answers at the end. So right off the bat, what are the major drivers of this rate increase? To answer this, I want to say, why are we even doing this? And really the short answer is to maintain long-term reliability of our water infrastructure. And it composes of three things. There's, of course, operational reliability. This is for health and safety, and also for efficient operation. Also, the other facet is water supply reliability, or resiliency, I should say. And this is the role of supplemental water to maintain our healthy groundwater basin and to allow us to continue to develop responsibly, to have infill lots and such. And also, it's to also provide financial responsibility because we want to be able to appropriate risk, we want to be able to have reserves, appropriate reserves to mitigate risks, and we'll talk about that in more detail. And specifically, what are driving the costs? So the main driver of the cost, which I'll show in another graph here, are the increased volume of supplemental water. So the NCSD is required by contracts to buy an increased volume of supplemental water, and this added a significant amount to our water budget. And also increased operational costs, just an example, electricity and insurance costs. And I'm not just talking about insurance for our employees, I'm talking about insurance in general, where there's the liability insurance for all of our systems, that all of those costs went up. And 32%, 60% respectively over the last 3 years. And also, there's also increased capital improvements for the funded replacement of our existing system. So this is, just to say right off the bat, the rates that we're presenting before you is not to fund capital costs like Dana Reserve. None of these rates are going towards that. It's going towards funded replacement capital. So these are projects that already exist, and there's going to be a table later that shows that these are projects that already exist but need replacement. So that's one of the drivers, and those costs have also increased. And also, we want to maintain reserves for long-term financial risk, health, and risk management. And this is really important to have reserves because people think that it's just a nice nest egg that you're going to have. No, it's actually more than that. It's also to mitigate risk. For example, most of you probably, some of you probably have heard that we had a lightning strike at the wastewater treatment plant in mid-September. Remember, it was that night on September 17th when this happened. Well, what you didn't know was that it crippled our plant. It crippled our plant, and if it weren't for the quick action of our operators, we would have had a spill, but we avoided that. So that's why you never heard about it in the newspaper, because typically if there was a sewer spill, you would hear about it. But things such as these go towards reserves. Other reasons for reserves are like higher costs of capital improvement projects for the funded replacement that I mentioned. Sometimes, like what we've been finding is that most of the projects that come back for bid are actually higher than what the engineer's estimate is. It's just kind of the reality that we're living in at the moment, unfortunately. So those are, so the why is that we would have long-term reliability of our water system, and the what these are the main factors of this rating. And this graph right here actually shows you a really good picture of what I'm talking about, I hope. So what I want to highlight is that starting in July 1st of 2025, our supplemental water costs increased. We needed to take an additional so we had to take an additional 667 acre feet. Okay, what that means is that that we needed to pay for that much more water, and that translates to about $2.7 million, or about 26% of our water budget. So that increase alone increased the budget for fiscal year 25-26 by $2.7 million. Something that's not also, it's actually, this new water coming in is actually it adds actually closer to 30%, because a portion of that also, there's portions of it going on this pie and a portion of it going on to this pie. So anyway, it's, but the interesting thing too is that, our supplemental water costs make up about 47% of our water budget. So these are our major cost components that's driving this rate, and that's the reason why, a question would get asked, like, why can't we just have single-digit rate increases over a period of 5 years or something like that? Well, the issue is that, the sudden increase, when you add 30% to your budget right away, small numbers of increase can't mitigate that increase. So now I want to introduce Clayton Duckbill here. He'll share with you some of the analysis of the water financial plan that supports the rate study. Clayton?
Well, good evening. My name is Clayton Tuckfield. I'm the one who performed the rate study for the district. I have been performing rate studies probably at least a decade for the district for the water and sewer systems. And when we conduct these studies, we make projections of revenues and revenue and expenses, and we look at all the different things that might occur to the district's expenses and revenues, the capital improvements, and what's required, what's going on with the system. So what I did, in all these studies, we typically start, okay, I made the projections. What does the financial situation look like if we did nothing? We didn't raise rates, we left it where it was. What would the revenues coming in look like, and how would that meet the expenses of the district? So this is your scenario if we did nothing. So these columns right here, this represents the district expenses. The blue column is the operation and maintenance expense. The orange column is the cost of the supplemental water that you have to take, and that's by court order. You have to take that. This little yellow, that's debt service payments, and the green is net capital spending. And what that means is spending that you don't have money for. And the black line represents your current revenue level. If we did nothing, same number of customers, same rates, and we keep selling water. Now, you could ask, what's this bump right here? And that is capacity charge revenue. That's the money you would get from additional customers connecting, and most of that is from the data reserve developer. So he's contributing that money that comes in to pay for his portion of that CIP for data reserve, okay? So there is a little bump you get there, but for the most part, this just continues like this. So what you should see is the columns are above the black line, which means you don't have enough money to support the expenses. So what happens on the right-hand side, this is your current reserves. You start the year off at a little over 8 million. So at the end of the year, which is this first column, you'll draw down your reserves to a little over 4.5 million. Then as you continue along here each year, you continue to use your reserves, and you just don't have, you run out of money. That's essentially what happens. So this is not sustainable. Once you lose that money, you're essentially, I guess, going back to the county at that point. So then we have to look at, okay, what can we do to make this plan work? So we went through a number of scenarios. We worked with staff for a couple of meetings working out scenarios. Then we had a couple of meetings with the Finance and Audit Committee of the district to work out the scenarios. And we ultimately presented a financial plan to the board of directors in September, I believe. So this is the financial plan we came up with. You'll see here this red line, that's with the revenue increases. So if we had 13.8% for 3 years, we would get our revenues up here in a position where we can not only meet our expenses, but keep our reserves at reasonable levels. Now the blue line here, that represents the target reserve level as defined by district policy. So we're trying to bump our reserves back up to policy where it should be. So what this plan does do is it provides enough revenue to pay for the additional supplemental water expense. It allows us to build the capital improvement programs that the district needs to build to keep the system in a reliable and safe operating manner. It cures the deficit for this first year because our revenues aren't high enough to meet our expenses. And then lastly, we can build our reserves back up to the target level. And this is all over a 10-year period. If I had to do it sooner than that, these rates would shoot up even higher to try to get it to that point. Okay? So once we have that, we want to illustrate here the capital improvement program. So this is all capital improvement, not just the operating fund, which is Fund 805. This also includes the district's Fund 500 and 700, and these are the capacity funds. That means any money in these funds can't be used to pay for operation. They just stay in these funds until the district identifies projects that are capacity increasing, and then you can use the money towards this. Now, there have been some questions about this. Number one, district spends, if you look out here, about $800,000 a year is a typical spending level for the district. It's just that in this particular 5-year window, there's a couple of additional projects that were unanticipated before. Eureka Well, $3 million, and a foothill tank rehabilitation, about another 1.9 or whatever. But $800,000 for 5 years is about $4 million, and we're spending about 8.9 now to keep the system going. So that was additional money we have to fund through the rates that we didn't plan on in the last rate study. Some of you had questions, and my understanding from Mr. Pienzo is that we did identify these Dana Reserve projects down here. Now, as I showed you on that other slide, we get a bump in capacity charge revenue, that little spike. That money is going to pay for these projects. So even though I've shown them here, they're being totally paid for from capacity charge revenue from the developer. So this is shown for completeness, not necessarily because it's being funded from the citizens here.
When was this rate study done?
Pardon me?
When was this rate study done?
And we completed the study in September.
Yeah, we completed the rates. So if your question is if there was a rate study that was done back in 2020, is I think what Clayton referred to, and then there were other projects that weren't included in that capital in the capital list from that rate study. So this particular rate study was done this year. So and it was completed right around September, and then it was approved by the board to move forward with the rate process in October. So.
May I ask, there's $800,000 in 25-26 under Dana Reserve Water Project, and another Project 1, and then Dana Reserve Water Project 2. There's another $250,000, or is that 280? We're almost, well, I don't know when he's going to start grading and doing work out there, but what were those costs for?
Okay.
What do they represent?
So, the lesson learned from this graph, number one, is that these projects that you mentioned under Fund 700 and Fund 500, they come from different charges. They come from different revenue streams. In this case, it's like we based this on the phasing plan that the Dana Reserve Project developed and just gave to us. I don't know the details relating to what 800, what comprises of that, but it was part of a phasing plan that they gave us. So, but really the takeaway lesson from here is that this 8.9 million is what is going to is what we are proposing that it's going to be paid by our water rates. So not the Dana Reserve, and just for the existing funded capital that we already have.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I read part of this morning, earlier today, and I think this was based on like 20 additional added houses per year or something in there. So over this 10-year period of time, I mean, you're going to have all these new Dana Reserve houses. You have Bell Street, Mary's got two, I think there's 56 on one, and I'm not sure what the other one is being built right now. So a couple hundred units there, plus the 1,200 units as well, that will be increased money being put into our fund, our water fund. So that additional revenue is not in this proposed, right? It's what you know today. It's not what if you had those 1,400 homes hooked up paying that rate, right? Or is that included in this? You might haven't gone through it yet, so maybe I've.
Yeah, actually, the first few years, no, it's not, because it's not built.
Okay.
So they're not contributing to revenue. But we, discussion with staff indicated that starting July 1st, 2027, that's when Dana Reserve would start connecting.
Mhm.
And they would connect slowly over time until they all connected by the time they built the
Right,
stuff.
phases. yeah.
So there is revenue being contributed by those. We have included that in the study. There's separate lines, I think, in the early table showing Dana Reserve, single-family, multi-family, commercial customers that are listed 3 years now from now,
Yeah.
when they start connecting and they start contributing.
So that's in this equation of how you're trying to get back to that 10-year revenue or having those reserves.
Correct.
Those
Yes.
1,400 homes that we know today that are going to be put in over the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, this is a 5-year window,
Okay.
so you'll be doing, hopefully, we'll be doing this study again in 5 years, maybe less, depending on how things turn out with the development. But, yeah, so we'll have a much better idea when they connect up. They connect up faster, that's great, because it'll mean they'll contribute more money sooner. So, yes.
Actually, on your chart, you're saying that we got like a 47% increase because of the supplemental water, correct?
So that so the lesson of this chart is number one is that that this big piece of the pie gets added to our supplemental water budget. So
But we knew about this
yeah, we
10
did.
years ago
Yeah, we
that
did.
we were going to have this,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden in September, you decide we're going to add this to the budget?
So let me push pause on that answer. We'll go through the presentation, but I promise I'll answer that question.
Okay.
I think it's a simple question. So there's the two large capital projects, the Eureka well and is it Foothill Tank Rehabilitation?
Yes.
Those are the two big ones. How long has NCSD known that those projects needed to be put in capital projects or funded and delivered for customers and for your infrastructure to be, in good working order, so to speak?
Okay, I'll go ahead and answer the question. So the Foothill tank. Tell me the year, Peter, when we first bid it. The 2018, I think, or was it 2023?
You're talking
For Foothill. I'm sorry,
Eureka
for Eureka.
It was 2022.
Okay, so 2022, we put a bid out for the Eureka well tank. And just a brief history of Eureka well. Eureka well was an existing well in our system, but the well collapsed. So we re-drilled the well in the same site, and we decided, okay, well, let's move forward with bidding the project. Well, when the bids came back, it was $3 million. Okay, and at that time, the board decided. At that time, since we were getting more supplemental water coming in, they realized, maybe we could push this groundwater project forward, push this capital project forward, which we did. We made that decision. The reason why this is back on the menu, the reason why this is back is because with the supplemental water coming in, we had to reduce pumping in our existing wells. And what we find, we suspected this would happen. What we found is that when you reduce pumping, it actually compromises the water quality. And in this case, we started getting nitrate buildup. And it's gotten to the point where 2 of our wells now we've had to stop pumping them. And but the good thing is we do have supplemental water, but it's not a good way to operate. We do need another well to help with operation. Should the supplemental water get reduced or there's some kind of maintenance, it's definitely needed. We did have the project back in 2022, but we pushed it out. But now it needs to be back on our capital improvement. The other thing too, so the Foothill Tank Rehabilitation, that project is we're not building a new tank in this scenario, we're recoating them, that's what we're doing. We are building a new tank, based on some funding that we got last year. But this one, we decided to put on the capital improvement because we actually got a warning from the Division of Drinking Water saying that we need to address the issue of recoating these tanks. So that project is definitely going to happen sooner, and so that explains those two projects. Yeah, go ahead.
But just a kind of a follow-up question
Yeah.
to that whole topic there. You've got those projects that are outlined in red there. They're kind of delineated in terms of just kind of ongoing maintenance versus the Dino project, reserve projects, which are listed below. Now, of course, you do have a Dino, or a new foothill water storage tank going along with that. You are clear that those projects under the red box there would be done no matter whether, if Dana didn't even exist. There's
Correct.
no plan for a Dana reserve.
Correct. If
project.
Dana Reserve never
These
happened,
projects would
we would still
be
need
talked
to
about
do
these.
Absolutely.
Okay.
absolutely. Yes, sir.
Why, earlier it was mentioned that the supplemental water was under court order. What's up with that?
It's the stipulation agreement that was signed back in 2007. So, yeah, and we needed to phase in supplemental water. You know, it started, we started receiving supplemental water in 2015, and we phased it. We started with 500, and then we moved it up to 1,000, and then now it bumped up to 2,500. So,
I understand, but I'm just curious why are the courts involved if that's something like that?
it's part of the adjudication, and the courts don't care.
Was it because we let the water go by us in our county in '96 when they were building the pipeline? Is that where that came from?
No.
No.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that offline because that's what we're getting part of.
Well, it just didn't make
Yeah.
sense. You said court order.
Yeah.
What?
I got a question for
Okay,
you.
yes.
Okay, you're saying these wells now have excessive nitrates because we're not pumping out of them? And is that due to incompetence?
No. It's the condition. It's the groundwater basin condition of that particular area. It is not just us. There's other wells that are starting to experience nitrate issues there. So, yes, ma'am.
Since we have the supplemental water, do we need the water from the wells? And if you're going to start pumping from that well, where's it going to go if we don't need it?
Well, we would only pump it if we need it. So yeah, so typically what we do is we run the wells in conjunction with supplemental water because there is a daily demand of about 1 million gallons per day typically that we need to either pump from groundwater. It's a combination of pumped groundwater and supplemental water.
This is supplemental.
Okay, ma'am in the back.
Yeah, I'm tying into his question because he brought up other housing developments that are in the pipeline, and those are not represented up there. And so that's, the ones that will be completed in the next 5 years.
Yeah, the study assumes that the Dana Reserve is the...
I'm not talking the Dana Reserve.
Okay, and that goes back to his comment. There's a minimum amount of connections that occur annually through the study in addition to the Dana Reserve.
Okay.
And that's based on the history of looking at how many have connected, and we make a projection of how many will connect in the future. As far as specific developments, we don't look at that necessarily. So it's just an annual over time.
You would know that. Maybe those houses that are like on the side of the
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as he knows, I have an issue with my meter, the water meter. The box belongs to the water company. And the new code is to put road base under all new water meters because my home is 30 years old, it didn't have it. So the box settled and broke my water pipe So I have two questions. How much water is being lost by you not repairing those and bringing them to code? And why is that not listed on doing improvements? Because it took me 10 months to get my water bill adjusted and an extra almost $300 of water loss because the road base was not under my pockets.
I don't have an answer for that. It's not a specific, I don't want to say it's small because when we're talking about water meters, we're talking about maybe couple $1,000. We're not talking about like larger projects like what we're talking about here.
So where are we talking about it then?
Yeah. So typically, like those are the kind of projects that reserves would help fund, right? Because like the issue that you had was somewhat unsuspected. Like we can't predict something like that happening. With old construction that was built under old standards. This is really difficult to predict. So. But if we do see more like a trend that you're saying, we will include it into our capital improvement. But at this point, it's rather small, relatively small. And I'm not saying that your problem was small. But as far as the scope of the project.
So I've got a question. You were saying that the existing wells are becoming contaminated with nitrates because we're not pumping a lot of water out of it. So then why are we going to develop another well that's going to sit idle, get contaminated with nitrates?
So back to the issue that the gentleman raised about the nitrate issue. It wasn't an operational issue per se or incompetence. It was the nature. It's the location of those wells in the groundwater basin. Those wells are we've had them in our system for years. The nitrates fluctuated, and but we did start noticing a trend higher. The area of Eureka well, the reason why we want that back in our system is because that well has no known nitrate issues, and it is the good portion. It's in a portion of the groundwater basin that has not only good water quality, but it actually has good water capacity as well, like 1,000 gallons per minute.
I'm sorry, maybe I was confused. I thought you told me that you stopped pumping, that it collapsed, the Eureka well.
It did.
But you stopped pumping due to nitrates and put it as a 2022. Did I misunderstand that?
So those wells that had nitrate issues, those are other wells.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we want the Eureka well back online again.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said that we did pump out of Eureka because it collapsed, and therefore it got nitrates, and then we got into...
No, I was talking about two different
Okay,
things. I
sorry.
apologize. Yes.
Mr. Diaz, I believe it's the case that because of the court adjudication, the NCSD has to reduce pumping of groundwater.
Yes.
And because the whole point of the adjudication was that at that time, the parties involved, which were dozens and hundreds of parties involved who had water rights around here, found themselves in a situation where if they kept on pumping as much as they were, we were just going to run out of water, or we would have salt water in treatment because of that. And the court, there was a settlement agreement, and the court said, no, obviously the parties don't want this, and the parties agreed to this, there was a settlement agreement, and they all agreed to reduce pumping. So it's not because of incompetence, it's because it was necessary to preserve the groundwater that we had and to avoid saltwater intrusion. And that's also why we had to take water from Santa Maria, because we could not continue to do what we were doing with our groundwater on the mesa.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think we were, in that case, here we reduced water consumption, I think, across the board, right? That was a reduction because of that. I mean, I think
Yes.
the consumption per acre or per person was reduced after that. I'm not sure if we're at those rates, but now we have this surplus of water that we're going to have. What do we do with the water that we pay for that we can't use?
Well, we pay for them regardless of whether we use it or not, so.
Do you put it back in the aquifer or?
Yeah, it's take or pay, yeah, we're not there yet, we don't wanna do that, we don't wanna take water that's expensive and dump it back like that. We definitely wanna use it, and that's why we're doing our best to pump less so that we can use the water.
The reason why I asked that question is that there's a pipe that's right next to Trilogy that's not plugged into us in that water district or that water taking event. I mean, I think that they were right across the street. They have their own water system, right? Their mix is different than ours. But I always thought when I heard it that we would, if we took this water, we could use it as our water district and we stuck it back in the ground. It's just going into the ground and going across the street, and they're getting it for free, as we paid for it. And that's why I was kind of like, okay, how do we, as a water district, how do we actually use the water that we are bound by that court case? How do we actually consume it? And I think in a couple of the Dana and some of these other infill projects, what I heard in those other projects was that the infill would pay for a portion of this, or so that current ratepayers would pay current rates and this infill. I know it's not going to happen fast enough. You have to make these payments, somebody has to pay for them to sustain it. But that's where I was asking the question. It's like, does that reduce over time or slow us every year having this rate increase exponentially, but year 4, year 5, you start seeing a reduction? You don't know these numbers yet, right? So you can't answer the question. But hypothetically, as you get 1,400 homes in 5-10 years built out, which Nick is responsible for 1,240 of them, and a couple hundred that we know we have infill on Hill and Mary over there. That those will be an extra 200, 300, 400 homes, I think, too, as well.
Yeah.
That will help with these connections that you need to use as supplemental water.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so again, there's no answer there. I mean, I just kind of made the point, but it's, how do you, when we finally vote on whatever this rate is, when we get to that point, in a meeting or two, whatnot, how you can project that. I know it's not part of his, process here.
That's one more question.
Okay, yeah, well,
On the nitrates.
okay.
And I don't know if that's in Peter. So the nitrate issue, is part of the cause of that because we're drilling less, pumping less, or is that because of the locality?
It's a combination of both. Yeah, it's one we're pumping less, and it is in a portion of the basin that has historical nitrate issues.
So if we pump more from those wells, it would reduce the nitrate.
So historically, what we used to do is that when we pumped it all the time, like these issues didn't make themselves evident. And typically now it's like when we put it back into service, we end up pumping a whole bunch just to help flush it out to get the nitrates down. But our operators are finding that that's getting more and more difficult to do. So I promise there'll be more opportunities for questions, but I'd rather just answer your questions.
Okay, so hopefully that outlines the CIP that's included in the study, and I guess, like Ray said, I think we learned that from now on maybe we won't have capacity projects in here because they're totally offset by capacity charge revenue. So, but I wanted to be complete because this is a district's budget, so that's why it's up there. Okay. This is included in the study, and this is essentially to demonstrate how we came up with the rates. So rather, unless you want to go through the math, but essentially, this is the district customers. They pay for supplemental water costs, their share of the district groundwater because they're getting groundwater also. And that turns out to be a blended water rate of $7. Then we have common cost, $204 down here for them as well. And so their district cost is $909. Okay. And then following a similar process, except down here for the Annex customer, they get 100% of that supplemental water, which is $8.42. So compare that to the $7.05. So they do pay more. And you add in the common cost, so they're going to pay $10.46. So this is supported through the study. It is supported through the calculations, and we demonstrated that the district has a certain rate, which is totally different from the annex rate. The annex customers will pay 100% related to supplemental water. The district gets the benefit of the cheaper groundwater. Unfortunately, because we have so much supplemental water, we're doing very little pumping, so you're paying mostly supplemental water costs. That's why there's not that big of a difference here. You'll see a bigger difference when we get out here because we're starting to use up all that supplemental water. And I think, in fact, we projected that at the end of the 5-year period, the Dana Reserve will be taking so much that now you have to start pumping more groundwater just to meet demand. And when you do that, your cost will go down on the variable side. Does that make sense to everyone?
Do they literally go down?
Yeah.
Well, the rate won't go down, but it will increase at a lower rate. Does that make any sense to you? Okay? Yeah, so, okay?
I have a question. Up there, you have district customers highlighted, but there is no number associated with that. How many homes is in that number, district customers? Is that 5,000? Is that 6,000?
That would be like
Is it
table
10,000?
4.
Yeah. Well, table 4 actually has the breakdown in our water study. So right now as far as customer accounts, a combination of single family is about 3,800, multifamily is about 470, commercial 117, irrigation customers 108, agriculture 1, and then construction hydrant 8. So it's about 4,557 customers.
And this is online, by the way, like this.
Yes, this is online.
He's only given us a couple pages. There's a whole.
Yeah, the entire water study is available. It is available.
I just didn't finish it.
Yeah.
And I don't, off the top of my head, that's not
Oh, yeah.
what I would remember.
So essentially, what I'm just trying to demonstrate is there is calculation to support the rates which are required to do through Proposition 218. It is based on the cost of providing the service, and we are showing that the district rate is lower than the rate we charge the annex because of the difference in the cost of the water supply. So the district customers do get the benefit of the cheaper groundwater. Okay? Now, I also provided this in the presentation to the district board, as well as it's included in the report. You can kind of pick your usage level over here to see what your bill might be, but we always kind of talk about the average guy. The average home uses 1,200 cubic feet a month. The current bill total is $142.96. That will increase to $156.31, looks like. And you can see the increase, it's 9.3%. Now, this is for the first year. This is the rates beginning February 1st, 2025. Now, obviously, the rates will continue to increase as we move through the years here. And so, this is kind of the same chart showing what they'll increase to based on whatever your usage level is. Look at the average guy again. Right now, you're paying $142.96 for that 1,200. I'll go to $156.31 like I showed. Next year, $186.54, and then up to $212.45, and it'll stay that way for an additional 2 years. There's no increase after the first 2 years until we get to the next rate study 5 years from now. Okay? So, California legislation allows us to do rate studies every 5 years, so that's why there's a 5-year window here. This is California law. Now, should something be some issue that really causes our projections to not come to fruition, we may have to do a rate study sooner than that. I don't know what necessarily that would be. Maybe a large capital project was unanticipated. The governor mandates reduced consumption by 25%, something like that. Then you have to do the rate study to make sure that you don't all your reserves aren't depleted. So if you were a public utility, you'd probably do these rate studies every 1 to 2 years. But California law allows us to do this every 5, and we try to keep enough reserves on hand that if something does go wrong, we got the money to pay for it, so we got this up and down fluctuation, and we get you through the 5-year period. Okay? Now this is to show, this is really a snapshot in time. At the time you did the study, the red bar is NCSD's current bill, and then with the increase, January 1, 26, that's the green column, and compares it to everybody else at that same consumption, 1,200 cubic feet a month at 3/4 meter. So you don't change your position with this increase, but you do increase faster than inflation at the 13.8. Now, all these other cities listed here, they're going to have their own rate studies. They're going to continue to increase their rates. And like Grover Beach or Rio Grande, they pump out of the same basin, just at a different location. So I'm currently doing a rate study for Rio Grande. I should take that back. I'm doing a financial plan for Rio Grande. We don't know if they need a rate increase yet. But while these cities are experiencing issues, perhaps you remember Grover Beach, they were talking about that Central Coast Blue project. So this is countywide. It's not isolated to the home. Okay? At this point, we turn over the rate.
Okay, so in your notice, so some questions were asked, about the opportunity to protest. An opportunity to protest is before you. We have copies of the notice. Everyone was mailed. All of the customer accounts were mailed their own notice. This is kind of like a smaller version of it to torture my eyes, but the details on how to protest is outlined here. It's very simple though. It's like what we ask is that you be the owner of the property receiving water, and if the person signing the protest as the owner is not shown on the last equalized assessment roll as the owner, then the protest must contain or be accompanied by written evidence that such a person signing the protest is the owner of the parcel receiving the water service. So basically, it's like, you just need to prove that you're the actual owner, because sometimes if you're a new owner, it hasn't updated from the assessment roll from the county. And the other one too is that you're the customer of record. Your name appears on district records as the customer of record for the corresponding parcel receiving the water service from the NCSD. And then for the statement for the written protest to be valid, the statement that it is a protest against the water rate increase, just basically like a letter, doesn't have to be typed, it can be handwritten. The name of the record owner or customer of record, the identity of the affected parcel by assessor's parcel number or service address, so you put your APN or the actual address, and then and this is and then the other thing too that's required is that we need a signature, the original signature of the record owner or the customer of record of the identified parcel. And the date of the written protest needs to be signed, okay? Or the date actually needs to be put on the notice. So, and if you have any questions about that, about this, then let me know. Because like this can be mailed to us, but be sure that it gets to us in time before December 10th is the protest hearing. And if you also are interested in submitting your written protest on the day of the hearing, that's also possible too. But just, the meeting starts at 9 o'clock and it just needs to be submitted in writing with all of these requirements before the hearing is closed. So, but if you get here at 9 o'clock, you should be fine if you're interested in protesting. And like I said, the protest hearing is our board meeting will be meeting on 12/10, so December 12th, 10th of 2025 of this year. And that's your opportunity to make public comment to the board, to provide your opinion, to let the board know, to inform them of their decision for the rate increase. And if approved, then the rate increase will be effective February 1st, 2026. So that's the implementation schedule. The last one is a summary.
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain if someone comes to the meeting and protests verbally, does that count toward their being against the rate increase?
They still need to submit in writing. They still submit in writing.
But they can do that at the meeting?
They can do that at the meeting.
What if it does not include a date and they didn't know that was important? Does that notice, if someone has already sent in their rebuttal, right? And didn't have a date on it, but had the APN and their address and their name and it's signed and it has all the details, is that just going to get kicked to the curb or is that person going to get notified?
Did you see?
Whenever we get an email, we bring it into the district and we date stamp it. So if it doesn't have a date on it, we still accept it.
Okay.
Yeah, because we actually date stamp it. And the date just needs to be on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
What's the percentage of ratepayers that have to protest in order for this to be changed?
It's 50% plus one.
And do you have a plan B in case the rate is not approved?
I don't have a plan B, to be honest. I don't. So, yes, ma'am.
So, I'm going to say this as delicately as I can, okay? We're able to come here tonight, and this is out of respect. It's not, you said earlier, don't hate me. Like, this isn't personal, okay? This is about the situation. So, for us, it's very easy to get here. It's in your best interest, not you, but, the group, to not have 50% of the people protest. That said, it's in our best interest that 50% plus one do. Now, we live in a neighborhood where there are quite a few elderly people. I think it is unconscionable to ask a 91-year-old person to drive their car with limited parking, 20, maybe 30 spaces here, sit in a room that usually is really crowded, probably will be on December 10th, not tonight, in the rain, walk with her walker, and arrive here to protest. If there is no conference call or video call that allows her, people with disabilities, or people that don't have to make a choice between putting food on the table because their SNAP benefits are ended and they have, or gas in the car, I think we all know what they're going to do for their kids. I think it is, with all due respect, unconscionable. I think it is against the best interest of the clients that you serve to not allow them to dial in or have a video option at any of these important meetings. And I say that not personally to you, but as the board and this group, it is imperative that you get to the 4,500 customers that you serve. It is your duty. And as my civic responsibility, I'm here tonight with my own personal time. It's not out of fun. I don't enjoy this as much as you don't enjoy it. I'm not getting paid for it. To take it back to our neighbors and make sure that all the misinformation that's on the Pomo neighbors, that's on, next door, people think, it only protests on the day of. It's just a nightmare, the misinformation. I really, really, really implore you, as a team, please do the right thing and allow people to dial in. It's really It's, in my opinion, it's unfair.
It's a matter of sending in the notice or getting the notice down.
Right, but people can't make public comments tonight and ask questions because they're
No,
excluded.
it's just before,
No, they're excluded tonight. You're not hearing what I'm saying. Tonight,
They're not being
if
heard.
you're not here,
They're not heard.
you're not heard, your questions are not answered, more misinformation happens because they're uninformed, and then we are constantly behind the 8 ball trying to get people to understand what's really happening. I'm one person, you're one person, he's one person. We have to get the information out there in a way that reaches the masses. Please, I beg you to reconsider. You told me no. I respect no, but I'm asking you for every disabled person, every elderly person, every mother who doesn't have money to put gas in the car. Please make this available to every single one of your constituents. Please,
All
respectfully.
right, thank you for your comment. Yes.
I noticed the camera. Is this being recorded and will it be available on the website?
Yes, it will be available on the website. Right now, there's no technical difficulties, so we'll, by Monday at 4:30, we'll have it up. So, yes.
This is a town hall meeting, correct?
Yes.
So where are the board members?
So the reason why the board members aren't here is because there's no action being taken, and I know Sean's here, he's a board member, but he's not a quorum. We can't. But it is in most town hall meetings. Most town hall meetings typically don't have the electeds in the meeting. It's an opportunity for staff to give information to the public and for the public to ask questions of staff. So that was that's the reason they're there.
Okay.
But they'll be there December 10th.
And I say it because I looked up the definition of a town hall meeting. A town hall meeting is a forum for public discussion held by elected officials or organizations to connect with constituents or stakeholders, to share information, and on and on.
Yeah.
But it would be, as just as an example, Jimmy Paulding saying, I'm going to hold a meeting, and then he doesn't show up. He's the elected official. It seems like if it's a town hall meeting, by definition, elected officials, and the board are elected officials. And
Yeah, no, I understand.
you know, I just wanted to point that out.
And my concern, along with you, I mean, because I look at the demographic, right? And I get it. You know, we have the largest population here is elderly with a fixed income and maybe less based on what's happening. And that's why, you know, creative thinking, you know, is so huge. It's like, what are we going to do to the community with these, you know, big rate hikes, you know? It's huge.
Senior discount and ADA access.
Well, wait, let me ask.
Well, I just would like to point out that the NCSD, I think, has done a great job. They send out a notice in the mail ahead of time, way ahead of time. We got another one with our bills that came yesterday that explains, you know, about the meeting, about everything. It's true, not everybody can get to me. I do agree with that. It's also true that not everybody can get to the Board of Supervisors meeting, and yet they do not allow comment. You can watch it by Zoom, but you can't comment. You can't give, you know, say something in there. And so I think we're trying to hold the NCSD to a different standard, and I don't think that's fair. Oh, wait, let me finish. I also, you know, Joe, you said, by definition, a town hall is something where the elected officials are, but the definition you read said, where elected officials are, or an organization. It's the or that we should be focusing on here. It's not the directors who call this meeting, it's the NCSD staff. And I think that's very important, because they're the ones who are giving all this information. I also, you know, you said that it's in NCSD's best interest to have the rate increases, and it's not in our best interest to have the rate increases. I completely disagree with that. It is in our best interest. Do we want to not have water? I mean, what's more precious than water, right? at this point. Yes, food, and we need food on the table, I agree with you, but you can't flush the toilet, and you can't boil water to cook the food or put it in the microwave. What are you going to do? I mean, I think the NCSD is working super, super hard to keep things under control. If there's no plan B, it's because the plan B would be to, borrow a bunch of money, and then how do we pay for that? It goes back to the ratepayers. You have to charge the ratepayers to pay. The NCSD cannot fabricate money. And so I agree, I live in a community that has a lot of elderly people, and we try to, keep up with them and be active, but not everything can be taken everywhere. I think the NCSD needs to be fair.
So, I'm sorry you took my comment personally.
No, it's not
It's
personal.
not about the job that you're doing. I think the job is great. But I think that there is, when you force people to show up physically, you exclude a very large quantity of our community. And it is in your best, not yours, the NCSD's interest to get the rate increase because the capital projects will be funded. That is a benefit.
And that helps
to
all of us.
Wait, I waited for you to finish. Please be respectful to me. And so I think for us, getting back to the elderly and fixed income, a 50% increase is substantial for someone on a fixed income, especially when it's unexpected for water, like you said, to not be able to flush your toilet. That's pretty horrible. I'm not disagreeing that. But this is also horrible for them. And so I'm talking about exclusion of public comment for people who can't physically be here. And second, and I guess my third point is what other creative, I agree with you, what other creative solutions with SLO or the infrastructure bills funding that came from, the feds, what other solutions were looked at that you haven't covered today? I'm interested, because I'm sure you did. You've seen these coming 5 years. What else did you do that we're not thinking about, or maybe that we don't know about?
Where you apply for the grant?
Which we unfortunately didn't get. So let me go back to the funded capital. So one of the things that we as staff try really hard to do is that the funded replacement capital is what is absolutely necessary. It's not a Cadillac list of projects, So number one, that's what we tried to do, and I believe the projects that we have there are what's necessary to maintain a healthy system. So meaning that it would be very difficult for us to defer those projects. Like that Eureka well was already deferred from 2022. I think that needs to stay there. And the other thing too is like what was said, I do keep my eye open for grants. What I am, an idea though, the part of the creative idea that we're thinking about, I will look into issues of, are there programs out there that would help with low income, or elderly, or people in that state. That is something that when I was in another district, we did look at things like that. So that is something that I will be looking into. Yes.
So the largest, this might be a very stupid question, I really don't know the history. The largest part of the pie is that supplemental water.
Yes.
That was negotiated a long time ago.
Yes.
Can it be renegotiated?
So there is no easy answer to that, but so that project was negotiated back in 2013, and it was enacted in 2015. Our legal counsel has a bigger answer for this, but in a nutshell, it would be very difficult for us to open that up without causing the district to be vulnerable to the other conditions of that contract. The other thing that's important to remember here is that it is part of the stipulation that we bring in that imported water. It was called like the physical solution for that. It's in our court order. And a question came up like, well, should we go to the courts? Well, typically like the courts don't care. Like they don't consider economics into the situation. Period. It's rare that they do. So I'll answer it that way. I know that you're probably not satisfied with that answer, but we can talk offline on that. But let me answer this question. Like you said, that 27%. I'm going to answer this question. So like, didn't we know about it coming? Yes, we did. And in the previous rate study, we did build a buffer fund for it. To help us. To help with that surge of increase, but it was only to give us a buffer to do another rate study. It wasn't a buffer to just say, oh yeah, it's going to solve the problem, ad infinitum, but it was meant to keep us it was meant to be for a couple of years, and something though that I've told people is that the assumptions in that 2020 study, a lot of those assumptions have changed. Like operational costs have gone up. Inflation, inflation got really high during that period of time. So yeah, we tried at that time to forecast as best as we could. But remember too that whenever we do these rate studies, these assumptions need to be reasonable. Because, like I've also said to other people, is that revenues that we collect from rates has to meet the cost of service. We're not making a profit here. It's an enterprise where revenue has to equal service. As a matter of fact, if it came to a point where revenue was like a lot and cost of service was a little, we would actually give the money back. Which or lower rates, but yeah, that hasn't happened. But conceivably that could happen. Yes, sir.
The question I had was that Jimmy, I think there was a tax because of the burden of these additional houses being put on unincorporated Pomo, that we were going to get some type of tax revenue from San Luis. They cry. They keep putting all these houses and all these services that we don't have on us. The water itself was, that was one of the selling points for the Dana Reserve, is that, hey, I'm going to make your water cheaper. I remember that. And both building and planning and everything, we're going to make your water cheaper. All the info is going to pay for that. Well, it's not apparent here. I know that 5 years ago, I think when the last survey was done, I remember the water increase, and that was kind of to help supplement. We knew this was coming 5 years ago, 10 years ago when I became property owner here. I knew that I started looking into, why this water supplement was coming in, and there was going to be a big impact to us. And I was worried that it was going to happen in July when we saw that, and I'm like, and so some of the money that you had, I thought, in one of the conversations in the Dana Reserve building planning or supervisor's meeting was that some of that money that you were collecting was offsetting some of this impact that all of us are going to have to take. But the question I started with was the taxes that were going to be given. Do you get any benefit from that as taxes are given to us instead of taking a slope proper? Do you get any benefit?
Yes,
some of that for these projects?
We do get benefit to that. In a short answer, we do get a benefit from that. As a matter of fact, currently we get about like $900,000 from the county for that, and it does help with some of the projects that we're talking about. And it does help with the rates too.
Is that going to increase, or is that what your current is?
It's going to increase when that number will increase as the development happens with Dana Reserve. Okay. And that was a very important deal that we needed that tax share because it is part of our annexation policy. But the other thing to remember too is that yes, it's good to use the parcel tax money to help with these projects and to help with costs, but but it still needs to be rates backed. Like, we can't rely on that. It's like, well, that's going to be part of our revenue stream. And yes, it is part of your revenue stream, but it still needs to be rates backed. Just like we don't count on interest earned from our investment. When we put the money in our money market, we don't just put it in a regular bank. We don't count on that. It has to be rates backed.
One more question. With the annex of this water, the folks that are, getting these projects approved, are you increasing the hookup fees for all these new projects? Could you actually generate revenue from additional connection fees after the supplemental water need to be taken to kind of help you with these projects that you need to do, these hydrants that need to be replaced, and offset some of that with new building? And I might want to put something in my backyard, but to put another meter on, I would be paying an additional cost because I've done that. And have you thought about doing that?
So as was mentioned earlier, the capacity fund falls under the capacity fund. Okay, we don't use it for funded replacement and operations. It's meant to be for capital costs, because when you add new connections, you're increasing the capacity. So there's going to come a time when we would need to upgrade a water pipe, but all of those capacity fees that fed into that fund will help with that particular thing. Yes.
One final, comment is, this is kind of a shock for the community to see this kind of a rate increase so much higher than inflation. But my personal fear, being on a fixed income and hopefully living for the next 25 years, is that I know Dana Reserve is not a part of this, but it was in 2020 decided to get $4 million a year for 10 years to help with the supplemental water, is my understanding. And $4 million in 2020 dollars is not the same $4 million in 2026 dollars, and that we are going to be setting ourselves up for yet another shortfall later on. And my question is really, what are we as a community and the district doing to mitigate another event like this? Because this is pretty substantial.
Wait, so what do you mean by $4 million a year?
My understanding from the last meeting, that was a totally hot topic, and this room was completely filled, and it was in, I don't even remember when that was, the summer, that part of the Dana Preserve project was that the water that we received $4 million for infrastructure projects per year for 10 years. I wrote it down, the contractor had it in his presentation.
Okay, well, thanks. So then let me clarify what really happened. So when the project becomes officially approved, so as you know, it went, the revised project went to the Board of Supervisors, and so there's certain time periods. So when that officially becomes an approved project, then the developer is actually going to give us $4.5 million as a jump start to get the infrastructure projects moving. But it's not a per every year thing. So what will happen is that as new homes are starting to be added to the system, they're going to pay their share of the capacity fees and that's going to go into building the infrastructure for Dana Reserve. It's not. It could have been $4 million in one of the line items, but that was just a coincidence. It was.
But what if the predetermined cost is much lower than the cost to build? Who owns that? You or the contractor?
So what you're asking is if the project is more money than what the developer provides us?
Water infrastructure delivery.
Then it's on the developer to fund it 100%. Okay, so the lady in the back.
Everything that I will comment on has to do with the cost of water and the ability to find ways to get more water less expensive. So I couldn't hear everything, but I'll give you an example. The last meeting I came to, the board members were here, and it was a good 10 plus years ago, because I remember I was running for Congress at that time. And they were going to build a pipeline to bring water up from Santa Maria. And I asked, why don't we tap in here that's going down to Santa Maria, and they can replenish the water down there. And they said, oh, well, we are afraid to do that because down the line, the other cities that are getting water might not like that idea. And they were even afraid to even ask. And I said, well, I'm a mediator, I'll ask them. But they didn't do it. They spent millions of dollars to pump water up here when we could have tapped in the water that's passing by. So another issue is you change from sending a bill every 2 months to every 1 month, and my bill went way up, and we're getting charged a basis minimum fee each month. My bill used to be $50 every 2 months. It is now over $100 per month. And this month, for some reason, it's $150. And I live by myself. I don't have a lawn to water, nothing. So, okay, so I didn't hear about the drilling. The cost of what it costs to drill and the equipment to drill ourselves instead of hiring a contractor. And then if the cost of the drilling equipment is too much, could we partner with other cities to buy the drilling equipment and hire people that know how to drill? And can we not drill because we're taking too much water out of the ground in a certain area? Or can we spread out? Or is it where we already have drilled that we're taking too much water out or the water is bad? So that's, and also, what happened to the idea of desalination? Is that not economical at all? And if we did it ourselves, I mean, as we do it yourself instead of someone else, could the cost come down? See, I see your organization spending way too much money on things that don't need to be spent. Why send out a bill every month instead of every 2 months? You know what the answer I got from your employees? Oh, some people can't afford to pay 2 months at a time. So instead, they double the bill, and each month it's that much, not every 2 months. So it makes no sense to me, and to me, you're making very unwise decisions, and you want us to pay. I looked at this, and over the next 3 years, we would be paying 100% more for the water. 100% more in 3 years from now. I'm already paying way too much for the water. Why would I want to pay 100% more? And for what are we getting?
Yes, sir.
Can we go back to the previous slide because I have a question on summary item 1? I'm
You
looking at
didn't get
that.
You didn't answer anything.
Well, so did you want me to answer, so the Eureka well, we already drilled it. We already drilled the Eureka well. And the only thing that we're waiting for, the cost there is going to be for the actual pumps to be put in. So
How much is the cost?
it's going to be $3 million because there's pumps, there's different analyzers, there's going to be electrical, there's going to be there's a chemical feed station. There's also going to be electrical telemetry that needs to be installed. So all of that is going to be about $3 million.
But the water will be almost free. The water doesn't cost. You're not paying for the water. You're paying for the equipment and
Yeah, the
also
electricity
electricity.
and chemicals.
And are you going to use solar or any kind of?
Yes.
energy to run the pumps or anything? Or are you just gonna?
When we do these projects, we always look for ways to be economical and yeah, solar is definitely, if it's gonna help with the project, we definitely include that. Okay, wait, this gentleman.
Now, my question is, when I read that, it says annual increases, and then it says 13.8 for 3 years. Is that 4.6% over those 3 years? Or is that 13.8% each year?
Is each year.
That's ridiculous. That's 42.1% increase. That's under, that, I can't afford that. That's crazy.
Can you afford that, sir? Can you afford that kind of an increase in your water bill?
Well, it's necessary.
I think if you wanted to not make it personal.
Okay, hold on. So that means,
I don't know if everybody's bill has this, but my bill also have sewer. So is there any idea if sewer is also going to be going up?
no, sewer already, we already had a rate study for the sewer earlier in the year.
So so it'll be another 5 years before that's looked at?
Well, I believe the rates it's 5 for 5 years.
Yes, it's for 5 years, so it'll go up every July for 5 years. So your sewer went up July 1st.
So, and then it'll go up again next year?
It'll go up again.
Along with the water. And how much is a sewer increase?
Our rate study is on our website.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yes, sir.
So if we send in a slip that says we're against no rate increase, how do we know that it doesn't get thrown away? How can we be assured that our vote counts?
Yeah, so we do have a very strict process that we follow. Like when we get the protest in the mail, our staff date stamps it, like what was described earlier, and we also we log it into our system to be sure that that it is an owner of record or a customer of record in the system, and we literally put it in a lockbox. Okay, and not only that, I don't have the key to the lockbox.
Okay, all right.
So, yes, sir.
I have a question. I moved into Mukomo about 3 years ago. Moved in and started a job in Sonoma area and found Mukomo rental. My name doesn't show up on the bill, so I'm not, it only says copy of the bill. I don't know who the owner is because I rent from a management company. If I needed to send my protest and find the owner, do I contact that management? Okay, I will do that. That's one. Second, I think, again, I'm with you on the rate increase. I pay more for water than gas, electricity, and internet at my apartment. It is unreal to look at 13% every year. Many people here, at least I have a job. Many people are on fixed income. I would like to stay in Mukomo. It's a beautiful place, quiet, great people. It is difficult. The other thing that I see is that as these rates go up, the property values are going to go down because nobody's going to want to move here, paying that kind of rate. It is going to suffer, not just now. Another point that I want to make, we talk about solar. Many communities throughout the state have incentive program for saving water. Where I came late, I browsed through this, but I don't see that here. Is there a plan to do that, to offer lower flow shower heads, incentives for changing lawns, any of that to save the water that means not use as much, so it doesn't cost as much to have it? Is there a plan for that? Have you considered any of this?
So we do have a water conservation program, to answer your question. And right now, the only thing we have in that program is a washer rebate. So I will look into seeing about other options that we could do. But right now, we've historically done it, but right now, washer rebates is what we have. Yes.
If I may address one of your questions, I'm not Mr. Holmes talking. There is a program through the county, and Janet can give you more information.
Yeah, you know, I've seen it. I rent an apartment. I have a couple of plants and I just get some water there. When I wash my vegetables, I use that water to water the plants. Yeah, I do. And I have a highly efficient washer. Also, I mean, I do, but I do at least low, that you say, I get one.
No, I'm just trying to address your question about rebates.
Yeah.
And there is a program through the county to replace grass and certain other materials with water efficient plants and less landscape that needs to be watered. So, but as a renter, I don't know if that program will
No,
apply.
I'm telling you, I don't have.
You might talk to your landlord.
I don't have grass or anything. But again, the point is, he was saying, I'm a low user. I get one every month, one HCI. And I'm still paying over $110. And you know what, it's not, I don't think it's fair for many other people, we are own, right? You just said that. That we have to pay so much when this is broken down that way. You know, I would like to be charged for what I use, not for what I should be using as a customer. And that's the thing. And there's going to be big, long-term repercussions in this community. I see it.
And well, thank you for your comment. And contact us, our staff, because if there's an issue, like if there's a leak in your system, you shouldn't be getting that much of a water bill if you're only using a unit. So, but yeah, contact our staff about that. We want to be all that.
I wanted to ask why the increase couldn't be spread over. I know that the reserve's going to go down, but it's just not going to go down that low. We're going to need loan or anything. Just spread out over a little longer period of time. It really kind of hurts me that the pause in the increases are related to when the data reserve looks up. You know, when a good portion of it's going to be hooked up. And I just get tired of hearing about your reserve, because you've got reserves, you're making $9 million a year just from the customers you have now, and you told me you have an $800,000 a year budget. So I don't get it. The numbers aren't punching right for me.
Well, I mentioned earlier on that we had a series of meetings with staff, and then we did the financial audit committee, and then we went to the board, and we looked at numerous scenarios, and what those scenarios showed was that there was a minimum threshold that you could get to without depleting your entire reserves.
6.3 million.
Well, 6.3 million is the debt we're going to issue to try to avoid that. If we didn't issue 6.3 million to pay for the CIP projects, we would use the reserves up to pay for that. And if we did
Use them up. You could just spread it out a couple more years.
No, can't do it. We looked at that, I think, if you recall. So, a lot of discussion was, well, how low can we draw down our reserves and still continue to operate? By doing that, you run a lot of risk. If data reserve doesn't hook up as we thought they would. What if you have a larger capital improvement project that's unforeseen? We would have no reserves for that. What if anything could happen and you need the money, you don't have it? So we decided that, the district board decided that there was a minimum level to use. We wanted to at least keep it where it was that we have now at the end of this fiscal year and try to build that back. And the only way to do that was to have the 13.8% and to debt finance 2 years of CIP for $6.3 million. So we did do all what you're asking.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed that there's not a better plan. And why can't we just close down the pumps, the wells that are pumping nitrates or low use wells, close them down, then that reduces your maintenance and operation costs.
We actually have closed them.
So your cost should have gone down.
Well,
For maintenance
my understanding is there's a
and
minimum,
operation.
my understanding is a minimum pumping level you actually have to pump if you want to keep those wells at all.
Why do we want to keep them if we got all this extra water?
Because in 4 years now, when Dana Reserve hooks up, the demand exceeds the supplemental water supply. So you'll have to start pumping.
It's one of those questions I was asking. They were talking about that building planning and the supervisors there, and the litigation that occurred that's in closed record, and that was that they were looking for an additional 500 acre feet. And it was, you have to petition Santa Maria Water District in order to get that water, right? It's not guaranteed, even though we have the capacity through this. We don't have the ability, we don't have any legal contract to get this additional water across. And so what you're saying is that you're going to have to go back in, the water that we know that we're like almost at, whatever the above sea level, 18 feet, or what I saw last in one of the reports was, that we're just above the sea level. I mean, I was told that for the first time last year, water is being drafted from underneath Oceano back into underneath the Nipomo Mesa. I have friends that are down in Los Barros that barely can pump water, and the sulfur type water that's happening across over in Thompson. My buddy had a double filtration system to even be able to make it potable. And so I know where the water's bad up here by the Sunkist groves and stuff, and my buddy down in Los Barros, which doesn't have any water as well. But if the question is that you're, I think, to ask is that if we go completely over what we've already asked legally we have to take because of that court order, your anticipation maybe in 5 years we might be needing another 500 acre feet through this pipeline that we haven't acquired, right?
Well,
I mean, or pump it out of the ground. That's what I'm saying. We gotta pump it.
believe me when I tell you, pumping groundwater is a lot cheaper than bringing in additional supplemental water.
Yeah.
So if you think it through, your best idea is get Dana Reserve and sell that supplemental water elsewhere, and then you can pump more groundwater, which serves in district, and your cost will go down.
Yeah.
So sell that Dana Reserve to other developments, whatever.
We're getting far afoot on
Yeah,
this.
okay, sorry. I'll let
It's a policy decision that.
Hasn't even,
Yeah. So go ahead and ask
Okay.
that question.
So in May of 2022, the NCSD did a rate study, whether it was partial or however it was done. But they did a rate study that projected a 30% decrease in sewer rates and up to a 5% decrease in water rates. That was based on the assumption that the Dana Reserve would be fully completed by July of 2025. However, even at that time, it was well known that the Dana Reserve
Wasn't annexed.
no, it was well known that the Dana Reserve was planned as a 7 to 10 year build out, making those assumptions unrealistic, even without any delays or litigation. It's a 7 to 10, so that was an unrealistic water rate. So 4 years later, NCSD does a rate assessment, and it's based on the fact that the Dana Reserve project will be online and delivering water. That, again, it's simply not feasible under any circumstances. The NCSD should have responsibly evaluated its 5-year plan instead of placing all of its expectations on a single project, the Dana Reserve. If NCSD wants to avoid water rate hikes for customers, maybe you should consider moving forward with a 50-foot extension into the Rio Grande. I believe you're doing a rate study or a financial study for the Rio Grande. They need water. We're only 50 feet of line could connect to AG, and we could sell water, some of the water to AG, and get that would lower the rate hikes for us.
Yeah, I like, those are policy issues that I really, that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about.
Okay. And the last thing, again, I'd like to address, Pina, I know anytime we do a financial, a wish list, so to speak, of these are the things that we need, we always tend to, in the perfect world, this is what we want done. Can you honestly say there's not a single project on that list that couldn't be postponed?
So, if you look at that list, most of the items that are on that are ongoing replacement projects. We've got blow-off replacements, air vac replacements, fire hydrants, valve replacement, well refurbishment. Those are ongoing projects. When you look at fire hydrants, for example, we have 600 some odd hydrants in the system. So every year we're replacing some. The system was started in 1965. Hydrants typically have a 30, 40-year life. So we're going through and systematically replacing them. The two big things that are driving it are the Eureka well, which, as Ray explained, has already been delayed, and it keeps me up at night, that if we lose the interconnect with Santa Maria, we run out of water without our large wells. It wasn't an issue because we had Sundale and Knollwood online until this year, but because of the nitrate issue, we're not pumping it. We could treat the water for nitrates, but that's more expensive than outfitting the Eureka well, which we've already drilled. We need the pump and all the electrical equipment, the chemical feed equipment, everything to run that well. Then the other issue, the other main big project is Foothill Tank Rehabilitation. And what that involves is recoding the outside of the 4 million gallons of storage that we have up at Dana Foothill Road. Those tanks have not been coated on the outside. Some of them since they've been built. I've been here with the district 18 years. We've redone the insides of some of those tanks. The portion of the tank that comes into contact with water, but we need to do the outside. They've come to the point that we need to do them, and that's why it's in the project. Could we get by without doing it? At some point, the warning that we got from the Division of Drinking Water becomes a notice of violation, and at that point, you don't have a choice, plus you also pay fines. So we're taking to the Drinking Water Division's word that, hey, right now it's a warning. Next time around when we inspect you in 2 years, it might be an NOV. At that point, you've lost control of the situation because you've got a very strict timeline that you have to complete it on, and you have to pay fines, which we try to avoid doing.
So, yeah, are there?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Okay, first of all, just based on what you said, every year that you wait for projects to be taken care of, they get more expensive, right? Because the costs go up. Yeah. So I understand that. Yeah, I had a question about the water coming in from Santa Maria. In the contract that we have a contract with them, right? Is there wiggle room for them to raise the rates of the water, or is that fixed?
No.
Over a certain period?
No. As a matter of fact, Janet, can you answer?
So we pay the same rate as a Tier 1 customer at Santa Maria pays.
Okay.
So we pay what their Tier 1 rate is.
So that could go up?
Yes.
Yes, it does go up, and then we also pay an extra energy component because technically we take their state water. So it's not only their Tier 1 rate, but it's also an added energy component that they get charged from the state.
Okay.
And
And
so
that-
every year they do a 5-year rate study as well, and so
Okay.
we know what the rates are gonna be for the next 5 years unless they do another rate study.
Okay, and that's all been factored in.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then over Long Range, because we started talking about that, you know, I come from an area where we don't have a lot of hills, where I lived last. And I mean, there's mountains, but not the hills. I mean, the Pomo is just full of hills. And, you know, I see these catch basins in AG, and there's a nice one in Oceano and so forth. Is that projected in terms of replenishing the groundwater? Are we looking at that in the future? Is, you know, putting in some more of those catch basins?
So the short answer is like a lot of the catch basins that you see. Okay, let me step back a second. So the NCSD, the scope of our service is water, sewer, and solid waste or trash.
Okay.
We don't deal with anything in the public right of way, meaning we don't deal anything with roads. And a lot of the catch basins that you see are tied to stormwater basins or stormwater applications. So the short answer for that is probably no. But I do want to tell you though, the percolation basin that we have, all the treated water that goes to our wastewater treatment plant, that's actually the highest beneficial use because of the water, because all of that water perks back into our groundwater basin. We don't have any ocean outfall. None of our water goes out to none of our treated water goes out to the ocean. It goes back into the ground, and that's actually the best use for it. And the percolation is a lot better than what you would find even around in this area.
So if we wanted to see more of that in the area for catching groundwater, do we have to petition the county?
Well, the county already has a really good program to maintain, you know, to catch water. Like whenever they do a development, like they want to follow historical stormwater trends. So like, you know, if a water falls into a vacant lot, you know, they want you to do an analysis that's going to release water at the same rate as what it was originally. So and because of that, they build catch basins, you know, to help catch some of this water. And it does percolate out of the basin. If you think that there could be more, absolutely petition the county because like but I do know that they do already have a program like that.
So if they were to build something like they have in AG, but they have to maintain it. You
Yes.
guys can't. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going back to the billing of monthly versus every other month. And according to your example, district water bills, 3/4 inch meter, the service charge is $41.56 per month. And it's going to go up to $37.23 in February 26. So I get penalized double because I have 2 more meters on my property because I have a rental unit. Even though it's one parcel, I was forced to have 2 water meters. And so I'm going to get hit with $47.23. Why is it that you are charging that much per month when you were charging, I don't remember the exact amount, every other month we would pay a service fee? Why don't you raise the water rate, lower the monthly fee, and let the people who use lots of water pay for your extra expenses? That way, they will be inclined to use less water. Right now, you're penalizing everybody with this high monthly service fee. For what? What are you doing for that? Providing us water? Why isn't the money being gotten through the cost of the water, not just a service fee? And have you analyzed what it costs you to bill monthly compared to every other month? You have to be spending a lot more money just in postage. So I don't understand why you guys do what you do. I'm a solution person. I have been in business my whole life, and believe me, I'm a penny pincher. I budget. You guys don't budget. Charge the people more money per month. That's how we'll get our money. You should be penalizing the people that use a lot of water, not me that doesn't use much water. So I'm going to be paying almost $100 a month just to have your service for 2 meters. Is that fair? And as a matter of fact, I'm also a real estate broker, and I would always advise people, you better look into what it costs you for water before you live in Santa Maria. Now we are exceeding Santa Maria's water costs. They have been outrageous for years. Now we are going to be telling people you better check your water costs before you buy a home in Napomo, which maybe that's what you want. But I don't understand this. This makes no sense to me. And the whole idea of changing from billing every month instead of every 2 months is even more ridiculous. I just don't get it. How is that cost effective? For a few people that I was told can't afford to pay. I used to, when this happened, I started paying 2 months in advance, so I didn't have to come here every month. I would pay in advance, so I didn't have to drive here to pay, because you don't make it easy to pay online, and you get penalized, what is it, $10 late fee? So if I'm late on both my bills, that's $20 per month I would have to pay if I was late. So can you answer that?
Let me make a few comments, and Ray, you can. So in regards to your monthly and bi-monthly, the thinking is, and this is not just local, this is statewide, is that if you want to encourage conservation, if I sent you a bill every 2 months, you wouldn't get the message that you're overusing water until 2 months. But if I change it to a month, then you'll get the message sooner. Same idea with the tiered water rate. If I charge you more for a higher rate, you get the message because your bill shows up. You say, I better start using less water. Okay, that's the idea on monthly and bi-monthly. Now, whether there's another issue I can tell you is typically the revenue comes in quicker. So if you're having operational issues, for example, the district could run a deficit, they need to get the money quicker, otherwise the bills, they're paying monthly or maybe quicker than that, but they're only getting the revenue every 2 months. Okay, so they're trying to match up the actual expense with the revenue that comes in.
Well, as soon as you changed it from billing every 2 months to every 1 month and charging the same monthly fee, or bill fee, not monthly fee, every 2 months you got 1 fee. Now you get a fee every month. So you doubled your income on the service charge right then. What did you do with that money? Where did it go?
When we went from bi-monthly to monthly, we took the bi-monthly rate and we split it in half. So we didn't charge the same bi-monthly charge every month,
Okay,
right?
well then why every 2 months was my bill total only $50? If you're saying that, then my bill would have been $83 approximately just for the service.
I would have to look at your bill. If that $50 was from 10 years ago, I would have to look at your specific bill.
2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, you started billing you should know. Do you know when you changed it?
In 2020, yeah.
And when?
In 2021, January of 2021.
January 2021. Okay, so for over almost 5 years, we've been getting double billed for the service charge.
My bill did not do that at all. It had. So I don't know, there's something you need to.
No, half for the water, but not half for the
Yes, the whole
for the service. Well, then you have a privilege and I don't. I'm getting taken then.
I'm being like yours. Same too. Mine is like yours. Yeah. You get one service charge for your lot, and then when you get the bill every month, you get that service charge. Yeah. So you pay twice.
Well, I was paying $50 every 2 months, so my bill should have gone to $25. Instead, it's now $100 per month. Because you add $41.56 per month just to have the privilege to get a bill. So why don't you change it to the people that are using that extra water, charge a little more for that, reduce the monthly fee. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. My gas bill is not this much. Even in the winter time, I hardly use any gas. My gas bill is about $40 a month. And you're charging me a service fee just to get the bill. That's what it looks like. And the privilege of getting it once a month because you think I'm going to pay less per month, which I didn't.
So to try to address that comment, if you look at the district budget, I don't know the exact percentage, but easily the majority of your expenses are fixed expenses. Variable costs would be like electricity, chemicals, some things like that, which is a very small portion of the budget. So we have already taken a lot of those fixed costs and put that onto the variable costs, and I've shown that in the report with the intent to try to reduce that fixed amount that you're discussing. Now, the question is how much, if we went to 100%, if we took 100% of the fixed costs and put that into a variable rate, the district's revenue in the summertime would be adequate, and in the wintertime when water use is low, they would not get enough revenue to support the expenses. I hope you understand that point. Water use in the wintertime is much less than in the summertime, so you get this variation in revenue. So to try to stabilize that, we try to put a reasonable amount of fixed cost into the variable, but not too much, because the district needs to operate with a certain level of revenue coming in, and that's what your fixed cost is.
You're leaving out the part of if you raise the water costs, lower the monthly service fee, you will have higher revenues, and people that budget, I had highs and lows in my business, so I had months that I had low money, but I survived, and I can borrow money to make it through those months. And then the bigger months, you don't spend every penny you get that month, you save it. My problem is you're penalizing people because you don't know how to correctly charge people. It makes more sense to charge the person that uses lots of water. The person that I'm subsidizing for people that have lawns that they water during the day and let it evaporate by having to pay a higher monthly service charge. That's not fair to anybody here or the whole county, actually. So why can't you change it? What's keeping you from changing it other than the excuse you just gave me? Because I also am a money juggler, and I know how to borrow money. And I know that you guys can borrow money if you need to for your organization. So if you have trouble making it through the winter, then you budget incorrectly. If the same amount of money is coming in because you've raised the water, you don't have to charge the highest service fee. You would get the same amount of money. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me.
I don't want to necessarily state that, but what I will say is that, revenues are based on the cost of providing the service. So whether I increase the variable rate and decrease the fixed charge, I still get the same amount of revenue. The whole point of this is to recover costs, not to make money.
You're missing my point. I'm talking about charging the people that actually use lots of water instead of penalizing the people that don't use much water?
There's no penalty and there's no subsidizing. That's essentially the law on cost of Proposition 218. It's based on cost. There is no profit being made. We are not penalizing and we are not subsidizing.
Why can't you change the way you do it? Why?
We follow industry guidelines through the American Water Works Association as well as the state of California, which recommends a certain level of fixed charges recovered, like 30% of your revenue from fixed charges, 70% from volume charges. And we're trying to comply with that.
You're trying to comply or you're trying to follow it? Is there some law that makes you do that?
Okay, perhaps I misstated compliance, but it's a guideline to encourage water conservation, which is what the state wants to do.
Guidelines don't work for everybody. It's not working for me. Is it working for anybody else here? Do you like paying a higher monthly fee just to get the bill? Because I don't.
Well, if we did it strictly on a fixed and variable, like I said, 90% of the costs would be fixed, and your bill would be a lot higher than what you have now. What we're doing is taking fixed costs, putting it in variable to try to reduce that impact.
So which fixed cost are you putting into the service charge?
The study shows an allocation process, taking the cost of service, we look at delivery cost, water supply cost, meter reading and services cost, and conservation cost, as well as capacity costs. And all those, in varying degrees, are either included into fixed charges or variable charges. But like I said, substantially, the costs are fixed costs. And so, if I can't remember quite, I think we took 30% of delivery costs and included that in the fixed charge, while 70% of that is in the variable rate. Okay, so you just have to, there's an allocation process based on American Water Works Association. We've employed that methodology, as most throughout the state and throughout the nation actually follows that same methodology. And it's been approved by the courts in California. And essentially, we're trying to follow those guidelines as well as the state guidelines. I'm trying to, if I had all my costs as fixed costs, does that encourage conservation? No, because no matter how much you use, you get the same fixed charge every month. So we're trying to put more costs on the variable as you charge, just to tell me. So point being that when you get your bill, if you use more water, you get a higher bill.
If you're trying to put more cost on a variable to charge people for the amount of water they use, then why are you raising the service charge even higher? Why?
Like that.
Why?
All
That
of
makes
this-
no sense.
all of this
You
is
need to
intersecting.
reevaluate and be fair to the people that don't use much water. Because next year, from according to this, I'm going to be paying close to $1,200 a month just to get my bill in the mail.
I've tried to communicate that it's not intended to penalize and it's not intended to subsidize. We're recovering costs and we're trying to put more cost on the variable, even though the district's costs are most of things.
But you're not trying hard enough. I'm trying to show you, you need to change it. What you're doing is not fair to the citizens of Nipomo. That is not fair. Charge the people that use water. Quit trying to basically take advantage of us on a service fee.
Okay, but you've made comments and the district has heard that, so.
Yeah, I obviously, we're not going to solve this problem today, but if you know, we can give you a copy of this report, but page 18, 19, and 20 goes into the detail of the whole industry methodology and the cost of service allocated, and then the rate design of and the proposed fixed charges. We'll give you a copy of this, and if you wanted to read it, we can talk later about it in more detail. But this explains it. This explains the methodology, and it is based on American Water Works Association Manual M1. And it's a good method. Yes, it's not a law per se, but it is a good method that we follow, and a lot of industry professionals follow the same thing. So.
I just talked somebody out of joining the fire department because I asked him, if somebody asked you to jump off a bridge, would you do it? And in Arizona, which I lived in Arizona for many years, not too long ago, they ordered a bunch of firemen to go into the fire, and they knew they probably would never come out again. 9 firemen passed away. So not everything that is a suggestion is good. Not good at all. So I feel like I probably saved this young man's life, and I convinced him to go into some other form of his career, because I don't want to see him being told to do something because he has somebody ordering him to run into a fire. So.
Okay, well, so our time is up for tonight. So we didn't get an opportunity to go over some of the questions that were written to us in the cards. And like I said before, we'll respond to those, those questions. We'll email you guys the answers to those questions. And we'll formally, frequently ask questions to help answer any future questions coming up, or others that might need the same information answered. But I also wanted to tell you all that, in addition to this meeting, that I do have office hours that I have available so that we can talk, on a one-on-one basis. We can go through the details of the report. Monday and Tuesday from 12 to 1 is when I have it. You don't need to make an appointment to go to those, but if you can't make it during that time, feel free to call our office and we can make an appointment very specifically for that. But Monday and Tuesday, 12 to 1, I'm available, no appointment needed, but if you can't make those times, feel free to call me. We'll get together and we'll talk. So, but for now, thank you all for coming to this town hall meeting, and stay dry out there. So, thank you.
Can you quickly get that email? Yeah. Okay, and does it have to be in an envelope or something?
No, you can just go.
Okay, that's what my husband did. I want to make sure it was
Yeah, no, yeah,
accepted.
we got it.
Okay, thank you.
As irony would have it, we just happen to have my NCSD
Oh, did you want to pay your
payment.
bill?
Yeah.
I can put this.
Good to see you here.
Tried to fill out
Yeah,
the
no,
form with NCSD.
Oh, yes. No, we can take that.
Very good, thanks.
Okay. Did you have a question? Oh, is that a question card? Or no? No, it's not. Yeah.